The most important things in life do not work the way you think they do. They work backwards. And in this video, I share with you 6 paradoxes that prove this. The first one is the intelligence paradox, and this one says that intelligence can lead to stupidity. You might ask, how is this the case? Because the more intelligent you are, the more educated you are, smarter you are, you think you can do decisions better, everything gets easier, but the opposite is true. More intelligent people tend to overthink, overplan, overanalyze, and they end up in this paralysis when they do not make any decisions in the end. Let's look at a practical example. Imagine you have a multiple choice exam or a little quiz. And if you're a highly analytical student, you start thinking about what can be right in each of the answers. And you end up choosing the wrong one just because you find your own way in the wrong answer. On the other hand, someone who is less smart than you might get it right because they just trust their gut and do not overthink every single small word in that question. I'm sure that it has happened to you that you have done a multiple choice question and initially you chose the correct answer, but then you change your mind halfway through and you end up choosing the wrong one just because of this paradox. We let this overanalyzing get in our way to achieve what we want. You need to let yourself decide in the moment without taking into account all other possibilities and making the decision with what is your inside telling you. Because sometimes it's not a question of knowledge, but rather what you feel that's the right thing to do. Sometimes we let our brain get too much in the way of making right decisions. And the whole point of trying to find the right decision by optimizing everything and trying to making sure that we control everything gets in the way of making progress in any area of life. So trust yourself more and believe in yourself that you can make the right decisions without overthinking everything. This takes time to learn and it's a lifelong journey, but we can all get better just by trying it and again in those situations. It doesn't necessarily need to be multiple choice question, but this is a good example. Last semester I took a course where we had this multiple choice quizzes every single week and I got so frustrated over time how I was not performing well because I was regularly changing my correct answers to wrong ones just because of this paradox. And this semester I also have a course where we have weekly quizzes and I trust my gut more, and 9 out of 10 times I get it right on the first time and I never change my answers back. If you try this again and again and see how over time you make better decisions just by trusting yourself more, you gain more self-confidence and you realize that you don't have to have all the information in the world to make a good decision. Let's now move to the second paradox. The second paradox is the hard things paradox, and this one says that the harder something is, the more valuable it becomes. People often quit learning difficult skills such as coding or playing a piano or learning a new language because they find it difficult. And this difficulty is standing in our way. And we just create these obstacles ourselves because we think that, okay, doing something difficult requires lots of effort and it means that I can't do anything else and I will just grind and hustle through it. But that's not the case, because by going through the hard things, you get better. And when you get better, you become more valuable. Anything worthwhile in life is difficult. Anything worthwhile pursuing in life is difficult. And if it was not difficult, then everyone would be doing it. This is something what I always tell myself when I do not feel like going to the gym. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. But because it's not easy, only people who are dedicated, want to pursue those goals, they keep going. There are no shortcuts to mastery. When you see top athletes performing their best, or your favorite football players or NBA players, it looks so easy, but we don't see the hours of working on the skill over and over again. And it is crazy difficult to get to that level of playing professional basketball or football, yet we still try to avoid these difficult things in our day-to-day life. We think it takes more luck or talent or privilege, and we don't realize that if we dedicate ourselves to certain things that are hard, we get to our goal sooner or later. The important thing is that you choose your heart. What does it mean? Something doesn't need to be hard if you try to reprogram your mind and tell yourself that it's rather something that's getting you closer to where you want to get. So this is again a paradox that is playing on your brain, and you need to work with it for your advantage and changing this perception from something difficult to something challenging. The problem with framing something as difficult in general is that this keeps us stuck in the first place. If we tell ourselves that we need to do this research and it's difficult, yes, this is something what I've been telling myself when I was starting my thesis. Now I got through it and I realized that it's not difficult when I reframe it in my mind as something challenging that I want to just master. It's much more fun when we look at our tasks and anything in life that we consider difficult as quests, something like levels in a video game that we want to pass through. And when you reframe this in your mind, suddenly everything becomes easier. But the point of this paradox is that anything hard is valuable, and you choose your heart. So choose well, because what you choose as your heart will determine the rest of your life. If you push through the initial struggle of learning something difficult and hard, you will gain valuable skills that will set you apart from everyone else. And then you will suddenly see that, okay, I pushed through, it was crazy hard journey, but here I am, this is what I achieved. And we all want to get to that point, but it's impossible without going through the hard stage that we can make easier just by reframing it in our minds as something challenging and fun and quests to tackle. The approach and mindset you have determines and changes everything. So the takeaway of this paradox is that the difficulty naturally filters out most people, making success more meaningful. Number 3 is the mastery paradox. This paradox highlights that mastery requires constant, tedious effort and humility. The concepts and approaches and mindset and skills we learn at the start can get in our way of further growth and further progress. The initial perspectives and concepts and approaches we have when we start learning something new often get in our way of further progress. And this is because we keep using them to get further. But at some point, we need to abandon them and focus on twisting what we learn at the start to keep progressing. And to show you a practical example of this, imagine a basketball player. If you think constantly that you need to improve your technique, and imagine a free throw, and you focus on your elbow, you focus on your wrist, you focus on the release of the ball, this overthinking, again, we are back to the overthinking, gets in the way of you progressing on making better free throws. This is because the more you consciously try to control something you have already learned, the worse you perform. Progress often isn't about more effort, it's about the right kind of effort. It is the balanced effort that produces profound results. And what does this balanced effort mean? It means enough focus to stay intentional, enough relaxation to stay fluid, and enough trust in your training to let go. This means that you regularly evaluate the way how you approach anything you're learning or doing, and think about whether the things you have already learned serve you when you try to progress on your journey. Do not try to use the same methods and ways how to progress, because they might not lead to progress, but rather to keeping you stuck. So the takeaway of this paradox is that in order to master anything, it's less about pushing more and more about knowing when to add pressure and when to release control. And this is something we all need to work on, because I think we all try to control our outcomes too much, and then we wonder why we do not get where we want to get, because we are trying to use the same ways and the same old patterns, even though we need to evolve them slightly to get further. Another example of this paradox from real life is public speaking. When you have your notes prepared, but you want to say your speech word for word, you control every gesture, you monitor how you sound, you record yourself 100 times, you focus more on the mechanics, not on the way how others perceive you through your speech, and you end up sounding like a machine rather than a human being who is connecting with the audience. And this shows that, okay, if I let that go and focus less on something that I learned how to do proper public speaking through preparing, through prompts, through anything, and just let that go for a moment and focusing on actually being in the moment and conveying the message with who I'm talking to, active listening, you sound natural. So mastery can either empower you and help you keep going, or keep you stuck by using the same methods and not progressing anywhere. I personally believe that the way how we can overcome this paradox is through looking at mastery not as an endpoint that we want to achieve, but rather a process. When you look at that, okay, I'm a master of this skill when I show up and do that every single day, that's a much better and healthier approach, because you look at it more like, okay, what I can try today if something what I did yesterday didn't work. So if you do not quit, you enjoy the process, and you show up every single day, that's the way how you get to the mastery, rather than hoping that one day you become the master by doing the same thing over and over again. Number 4 is failure paradox. And this one says that failure is the path to success. And this can sound a bit paradoxical, because how can we achieve success when we fail? Thomas Edison failed thousands of different designs before actually coming up with a functioning light bulb. Imagine he gave up after the second or third trial and he told himself, like, okay, this doesn't work, it's failure, I'm a failure, and I can't do this. We wouldn't have light bulb and we wouldn't have many other things if people gave up too easily just because this is failure. And the worst thing is that we are the ones who define failures for ourselves. And even worse is if we let this definition of failure being applied to ourselves as the source of that failure. Your brain is trying to find ways how to prove why things don't work, and it tries to protect you. It's a natural mechanism how we evolved, that we want to avoid anything that's unpleasant, anything that's hard, as we discussed. And if you fail, if you feel like you failed because you didn't achieve what you wanted to achieve, it's naturally in your brain a signal that, okay, this didn't work, try to avoid it because it hurts. It was something that didn't work out well, avoid it. But this is where our conscious prefrontal cortex part of brain needs to come forward, and we need to decide that, okay, this didn't work, but there are other ways how we can try it again, and that might work. If we give up, there is no way we'll ever find out if something works or not. But if we try it again through different angles, it might work, maybe it won't, but then it's another opportunity to try it again. And this approach to failure as something that we can get up from as stronger people completely transform your mind, because you realize that there is nothing like a failure. And I keep repeating this in my videos because I find it so important. I really want that to sit with you. Just say it for yourself out loud. There is nothing like a failure, because what does it even mean to fail? What does it mean? You learn something new. You learn something valuable about things that work, about things that don't work, and you can iterate based on this feedback. Isn't that amazing? I don't think that there is anything wrong with failure. And on one hand, it can feel like a failure in the moment, but when you look back, it often is a point in your life when you grew the most. You need to consciously reprogram this in your mind. So when you fail an exam, you are not a failure. You are too tired after the end of the long day to keep working on your side projects, you're not a failure. You skipped the gym because you were not feeling very well, but you feel guilty because that was the plan and you didn't follow, you're not a failure. These are just a couple of examples when I was thinking about how this paradox can manifest in our day-to-day life when we can think about, okay, I'm a failure. But when you look at it through this different perspective as the most valuable points where we can get this feedback, okay, this didn't work, why? Why this didn't work? How can I iterate? What can I do differently next time so this doesn't happen? Through this failure, we can see what did not work and why it didn't work, and then iterate based on that feedback. So let's say you fail the exam. It's not the end of the world. You just have to realize and find the things you got wrong and why you got it wrong. Is it because you didn't get the topic right? Is it because you thought you understand it and you didn't? Is it because you didn't have the right materials? Is it because you just neglected it and was lazy, or you procrastinated on it? And then, okay, what can I do with this? I procrastinated on it. So, okay, next exam, I will start a little bit earlier. So it's an information for you, for your future self, how you can do things better in the future. I find this paradox very powerful because thinking about that failure is a path to success is something that completely opens your mind. I need to keep reminding this over and over again when things don't go as I thought they will, and that it's absolutely normal and things are not supposed to go as we want. The unpredictability of life is what makes it beautiful, right? So if we controlled everything and if everything went as we wanted to, so many amazing things wouldn't happen. Because just because we don't plan something or anticipate something or prepare something, it doesn't mean that the alternative will be worse. And if something happens and we consider it as failure, we need to consciously tell our brain that this is not the end of the world, but it's an opportunity to get better. So a takeaway for us from this paradox is that each failure shows us what doesn't work. So we get closer to success by eliminating the things that don't work, so we can focus on things that do work and bring us closer to success. You need to fail more to succeed more. Get yourself out in the arena and fail a lot. It's the best thing you can do for yourself. Number 5 is the knowledge paradox. And knowledge paradox says that the more information you have, the harder it is to act. And I love this paradox because this can be applied to any area of your life and you can see it manifesting daily. The more you read about something, the more undecisive you are. The more you try to gather as many options before you can pick the best one, the less you act and the less you do and the less you actually experience things because you are just in this constant decision-making process. And you end up being so tired from it. So this decision fatigue is real, and it happens when we have more and more information available. And in this day and age, when we have so much information available at the tip of our fingertips, we have so many sources and so much information out there. This cognitive overload of all this information keeps us stuck. Too much information leads to paralysis, and we want to avoid this at all costs. We need to be selective about how much information we let into our lives, and this means also going through your social media and people you follow and asking with every single person, is this person actually giving value to my life? Is this just cognitively adding too much information on my plate? And is this actually helping me in my life journey, or is this just adding unnecessary noise? Other areas include also your academic journey. If you spend hours just researching without actually writing, you end up in this paralysis. I'm writing my thesis in these days, and I don't want to fall victim of this paradox anymore, because if I just get stuck on reading more and I need more information and I need to more authors to support this statement, I just don't get anywhere. I need to tell myself, okay, now I have enough information and I can start writing. But if we just tell ourselves that we need more information to make better decisions, we are never going to move anywhere. I think that information paradox goes hand in hand with the intelligence paradox, that the more we are intelligent and the more we overthink and overplan and overanalyze, the more we are likely to keep searching for more information, so we may even better optimize decisions. But as you can see, this just fatigues your brain, and in the end you don't end up doing the best decisions for yourself. And that's what we try to avoid if we want to live our best lives. We don't want to stay stuck just deciding, we want to actually live our life. So stop searching for more information and start living right now. Number 6 is the Solomon advice, and this one says that we give better advice to others than to ourselves. For example, you tell your friend to leave a toxic relationship because it's unhealthy for them, but you yourself stay in one. Emotional bias clouds our self-judgment, and we are often inclined to help others and to do the best for them, but we do not realize that for the same problem, we are applying a different criteria for ourselves. The way how we can overcome this paradox when we are stuck on a decision is imagine that we are giving this advice to a friend, even though you're actually giving it to yourself. Because when you think through this perspective again as another person, you end up giving better advice. But then you need to apply that advice to yourselves and actually do the thing you recommend to a friend. If my best friend would be in the exactly same situation, what advice would I tell them? And then do that. This second step is as important as telling this friendly advice to yourself, because when you just keep talking about it without doing it, you will keep being stuck. Another way how you can overcome this paradox is the empty chair method. And this is that you imagine a chair next to you, and on that chair is sitting an older, wiser version of you. It can be either your wise friend sitting on that chair giving you the advice, or what I find even better is imagining yourself 10 years from now, your wiser version, and what would that person tell you to do in your stuck position. We are often stuck because we are not keeping any distance between our thoughts and actions. These two exercises gives us this psychological distance that we need to gain the clarity and to separate our thoughts, which are often misleading and not right, and as we can see, full of paradoxes, from actions that we can do to get out of them. That was our last paradox for today, and if I could point out one pattern throughout all of them, it is that life doesn't move in straight lines. It moves in contradictions. And the more we understand things, the more we realize how complicated they are and how often the things that look obvious we do not notice because of our own biases and things that we perceive as this is how it's supposed to be, but in reality, it's just holding us back. If you enjoyed these 6 paradoxes, stay tuned for the second part where I will go through 6 more, and they are even more complicated than these first 2, so definitely subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that video. And if you like this one, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And yeah, I think that this is something that we need to go all of us through once in a while, and I even made a video about paradoxes a while ago. I'll put the link up here so you can check it out, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye!